in to support children in foster care. Today we're going to make a couple of things and put together a little family night dinner recipe. We're going to do a Yucatecan style chicken taco using chicken thigh. We're going to do some hibiscus pickled onions, and we're going to do some refried beans on the side. So we'll get into some of these ingredients as we go along. We're going to start with our marinade for our chicken. Okay, this marinade is from the Yucatan Peninsula. It features a few ingredients that they like to use. They like to use this bitter orange marinade, and they like to use this annatto seed paste, achiote. So this achiote comes in this little pack, and all these ingredients are available at any Hispanic store, tienda. A lot of times the international stores that aren't just even Hispanic focused, you can find them there. So this is achiote, bright red, pungent flavor, very earthy, very unique taste. We're just going to use this whole little block. I'm going to go right in. We're going to use 12 ounces of this bitter orange marinade, and that's half of this bottle. So we're going to go all in here. There's different brands of this. Goya is a brand. This is called La Lechonera, one of my favorites. So that's going to go in there. We're going to use this Goya adobo seasoning, which is pretty much just a versatile seasoning for just about anything. We're going to do about a couple tablespoons of that. Then instead of using fresh habaneros, we're going to use this habanero hot sauce. So we're going to get the spice and the flavor out of it, and we're going to be able to use this later on the tacos as well. So that's going in. After that, we're going to add 4 cloves of fresh garlic. Right in. We're going to use some Mexican oregano, a couple tablespoons of that. Sea salt. All right, that's it. We're going to use more salt when we marinate the chicken, so we don't need to be too liberal with that. Okay, so we're going to whip this up in the blender. It's going to be a little chunky at first, and that block it'll break down. All right, that should be good. So what we're going to end up with, you can see, is this really red, vibrant, and you can't smell it, but it's very pungent, like the flavor of that annatto seed, and it's going to give a great color to our chicken. Okay, so we're going to use chicken thigh. I'm a big fan of chicken thigh when we're doing a braise like this. It stays nice and juicy, and it shreds up really great. So this recipe is going to be about 1.5 pounds chicken thigh. Okay, and it should be good to go out of the pack. You can give it a little rinse if you want. We're just going to go right in here, break them up a little bit, spread them out. I'll show you what this looks like here in a second. So we're just going to spread them out even in our baking dish. And then to that, we're just going to season this with a little salt. This is where we want to get a good amount of salt on here. And then the marinade is going to go all in. It's going to coat, and kind of chicken's going to sit in there. It's about halfway filled. We're going to mush this around, lift it up, make sure it's all covered. Then it's going to look like this. So then we're just going to wrap it up, piece of foil, and it's going to go onto the oven. 375 for just over an hour. And we have one in here cooking already. We'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so while that's cooking, we're going to prepare the rest of our items. These hibiscus pickled onions, these are a great little condiment. So what we're going to do first, we're going to start our marinade. And that is going to be 2 cups of white vinegar. We're just going to have, this doesn't need to be perfect, it's just a quick pickle. We're going to use 1 cup of water. Okay, so that's our liquid measurements. To that, we're going to do 1/2 cup of sugar. Some sea salt. About a tablespoon. So we get a nice little sweet and tangy pickle on this. Okay, to that we're going to do some lemon zest. Just about a tablespoon. This will just give it a nice citrus flavor to the onions. They'll really come out, accent that chicken. All right, and then the key ingredient of this is the hibiscus flowers. So these are also available in the Latin restaurant or Latin stores. This is about half a pack, it's just 1 ounce. So these are gonna go right in. And they're in here now, but we're gonna need a strainer when we make the onions, because we're gonna wanna strain this out. We don't want this into the onion. So we're gonna slice up our onion rings. And the key to this is to make those nice and thin. I like to use a trick where I kind of peel this off. Not all the way off, but kind of just like this to the one side. And what I'm going to end up with is like a little handle. So we give me somewhere to hold this onion when I cut these rings. Okay. Now, the key to this is just like I said, nice and thin. You want some nice rings. Oops. Okay, so then we want to break these up so we get all of the surface area will be coated with this liquid. Okay, we can just lay those there while this comes to a boil. This little mix. Okay, so now we have our hibiscus marinade boiling, and what has happened is the sugar and the salt is dissolved, and the bright red of the hibiscus has come out, and that's what's going to give our onions this beautiful red color. So like I said, the strainer, we don't want those leaves getting in there, flowers. We're just gently going to pour this on here, onto our onions. That's it. Now these you guys should make the day before. Make them 2 days before. These will last for a long time because they're pickled. So we just cover this and let it sit. Okay, onto our refried beans that we're going to use as a side. This is one of my favorite versions of refried beans. It starts with raw pinto beans, dry pinto beans right here. So we're going to cook them. We're going to add some ingredients to this so we get some flavor in the beans before we refry them. So we're going to add ingredients when we fry them and when we cook them raw. So these are going to go in. That's about a pound. Perfect amount of water for this is 10 cups. So that we're going to add half an onion, sliced or diced. So for this we're going to dice it. It doesn't matter because we're going to puree it in the end. So we're just going to get some flavor in there. So just a rough chop is fine here. Doesn't need to be pretty. This one in. So I like my beans spicy. So we're going to add a little heat on the front end to the fresh serrano chili. And again, nothing pretty. It's going to cook down. It's going to get blended. So that's going in there. It's going to add a little heat. And then we're going to start with about a tablespoon of salt here, just to get some into the beans. But we're likely going to add more when we refry them. Okay, so that's that. We're going to bring it to a boil, then drop it down to a simmer for about just over an hour. So you just got to keep checking it. When all the water's absorbed, there's just a little bit of water remaining. That's when you know they're done. You can give them a little touch. The water, when it's done, the water will stop looking like water and it'll start looking like kind of a thickened, almost like a soup, like a chili looking liquid. So that's what you're looking for. So this is going to go for an hour. Okay, and you can do this the day ahead of time too if you want. Now we're going to use the rest of this onion for our chicken. So we're going to just cut this into some nice thin slices. And when our chicken comes out while it's still hot, we're going to shred that chicken and add these thin slices of onion to it. So they're not going to cook totally, but they're going to be nice and soft. They'll just become part of that chicken. Okay, so we're going to pretend this is cooked and set it aside for now. I have a batch already cooked. And we'll get right into the refrying process. Okay, here's the beans. This is what it ends up looking like cooked. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of that liquid still in there. Not a lot. We don't want too much of the beans are runny. We can always add liquid to this to adjust the viscosity to make it thicker or thinner. Okay, so once this skillet gets hot, we're going to add. Now here you can use oil or lard. I use oil just because I don't particularly care for the flavor of lard, but a traditional refried bean is going to have lard. But again, once you use lard, vegetarians can't eat it, and that's a problem for some people. So we'll go with oil. You want to get that nice and hot. So we're going to use these arbol chilies to get a little more heat into this. Now this recipe calls for 6. These are little dried chilies. These pack a good amount of heat, probably about a 6 or 7 on a scale of 10. So you want to be careful with them. We're going to go with 6. So like I said, I like it spicy. If you don't want it spicy, just 3, maybe none. So all this is really bringing us it's going to be a little nutty heat as well as heat. So when we toast these, every time you want to use these, you want to toast them off in the oil a little bit to get a nice nutty char on them. It releases all that capsicum oil and gets the flavor coming out. So we don't want to burn them, so we have to be careful. Hot now. Okay, we're going to try it. Now you want these things to just dance a little bit when they get in there. Yeah, that looks good. Could be a little hotter, we'll get there in a second. And we're okay with that, just sitting there for a minute. Now, one of my favorite ingredients we're going to use in this is called epazote. Now this epazote is a very earthy, very pungent weed, basically, from Mexico. It's a great flavor. It adds a real rich, deep flavor to the beans. And it also helps with flatulence, they say. So we're going to just give these a little rough chop. This is about a cup. Okay, so these beans the chilies are going now. We're just going to, yeah, you can hear that little toast. They will. When we get this liquid in this oil, it is going to spatter a little bit, but we're ready. And these chilies give off a great amount of spice in the air, which may or may not make you or me sneeze. Okay, so these are going to go for about 2 minutes until they're nice and heated through, and then we're going to puree them. Now here's a good time where you may want to add salt, but not too much, because we can still add some later. But we know it's going to need some. Okay, so it's just starting to simmer here a little bit now. Now we can add our cup of epazote. It's going to get pureed in the mix, so that's good. And I can smell those chili arbos. Really good. They got a nice little crunch on them, so they're gonna kind of cook a little more and soften back up, which is the point of toasting them, just to get that. I can show you. It went from red to like this black, brown looking color. That's what that smell is, and that's where the flavor comes from. Okay, so while these beans are doing their thing, let's get to the chicken. Okay. Chicken goes for about a little over an hour. Comes out. You can see how nice and red it is. I can tell it's just going to shred apart. So right now, while it's still hot, we're going to add this onion. Then while we're shredding it, this onion will break up and it'll all become one. Okay, so nothing pretty here. We're just going to kind of break this up. And you can see it's just falling apart right now. I'm going to keep this liquid in here. smell right now smells great. You smell that annatto, the onions mixing in there. And then we'll just mix the rest of that sauce in with it. Okay, and at this point we can cover this back up. You know, this will stay like this good for a while. But we'll just keep it here because we're going to plate it. Okay, so now the beans are good. So once they're ready, we're just going to blend them up. We're going to use one of these stick blenders. If you don't have a stick blender, you can use a regular blender. The thing is, once we start doing these, it may need more liquid, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Alright, so once the beans start breaking down, they really start to thicken up. And at this point, the viscosity is in your judgment. You can take them all the way down to totally creamy, or you can keep them kind of chunky if you want. I'm a big fan of totally creamy myself. I'm going to bring them down a good ways here. Each of those chilies are chopping up. Now, here at the test kitchen, we've probably made 50 different varieties of refried beans. And this is by far a favorite, everybody. It's just nice and spicy, creamy. That's where we're going to leave it right there. Okay. Now, get our plate here. And we're going to heat up a couple fresh tortillas. Okay, here are our finished onions. So you can see how bright red they get. Okay, we've got our hot tortillas. I'm going to place these in our tortilla rack. This. Start with our chicken. And you don't want to get too much of that juice in there, so it's like running all over the place and soaking up the tortilla, but you do want to get a nice amount of that for the flavor. But it's not going to be dried out, so you don't have to worry about that. You see how juicy it is. And those onions just kind of wilted in there a little bit, so they're like half cooked. Just going to add a little crunch to that. Okay, that's our chicken. I'm going to chop this little fresh cilantro for this. Nice roast chop. Put it on the tacos like this. Add some freshness. And then just finish with our hibiscus pickled onions. You don't need a lot of these, just have a lot of flavor. Add a nice crunch. And again, you can make a double batch of these and they'll last forever. And they're not bad to have in the refrigerator. Okay, so then we're just going to add our side refried beans. Looks good. And then that we're just going to garnish with a little fresh crumbled cheese. That is our Yucatecan chicken taco with refried beans.